Let's talk about Hecarim. Now, Hecarim's character model exhibits one of the problems of League of Legends character models in general, which is that they don't deal well with transparency. So the idea of Hecarim is that he's this horse armor with this rider attached on top of it that's supposed to be animated by dark spirit magic. In reality, he just has a big teal body that's just kind of there, which is something that I've always kind of disliked about his character model. But that's just the reality of model making for a game like League of Legends. As a character design himself, Hecarim is like, he's cool, but he's also kind of generic. Like, he's a centaur dude who's also a ghost dude at the same time, which is like, yeah, sure, like haunted ghost centaur armor. I guess, like, for me, it's a little bit too Warcraft 3. Like, Hecarim has always been a little bit too Warcraft 3 for me. Like, with all of the fucking skulls and the mouth and the skulls and the mouth and the skulls and the mouths and the skulls and the mouths all over his character design. He's so fucking extra, where I would kind of have liked to see him, like, be a little bit more streamlined and sleek, because, like, that's his whole gameplay aesthetic, is that he's this fast-charging, fast-moving juggernaut, this force of nature that mows down everything in front of him, which I really like as a concept, but Hecarim's character design just doesn't really support it. He just looks big and bulky and unwieldy, and I don't know what the fuck the face is supposed to be. Like, it doesn't even look like a skull, if that's what it's supposed to do. It just looks like a monkey with a really bad tooth decay or something. So, like, Hecarim is, like, fine. I don't know. I don't want to talk about him much. He's, like, somewhere between B and C tier, and I'm going to put him in C just because I don't like him. He's, like, fine, but he needs an update to bring him into line with the modern aesthetic of the Shadow Isles. Speaking of Yordles, yeah, Hecarim should have been a Nuclear V. Yeah, I agree with that. Random Mordekaiser, I mean, he should have been a Nuclear V. That would have made him more interesting, rather than the sort of generic centaur design that he's got going on right now. Anyway, Heimerdinger, my boy. Heimerdinger is another one of those characters who, like, I think he was always supposed to be a Yordle. I don't think he was a Megling like Tristana was, but his old character design... Let's see if I can find his original splash art. His old character design basically had him be like a living brain. Come on, give me the goddamn... I hate looking for splash arts on Google because there are always some fucking thing... Okay, let's use this instead. Let's look at his original character model. This is what Heimerdinger used to look like. And theoretically, this stuff here is supposed to be his hairdo. Theoretically. But the way that it looks in-game, and especially the way that it looks in his splash art, just makes it look like it's his brain. And you can especially see that... Here's the splash art. Finally found it. Here's the splash art. You can especially see that, like, with the swirls and curls around it, it looks like it's just his motherfucking brain, and he's got, like, a wrench and a hammer sticking out of his actual cerebral cortex. And what's really weird is that that brain aesthetic for the hair continues into the mustache. And that was, like, just a whole thing. And I never knew what the fuck to make of old Heimerdinger. He was, like, real weird character design. So, when they update him to become a proper Yordle, like, once they have this idea, okay, Yordles are small, furry creatures, basically, and the males tend to be more furry than the females, so with the mustache and the thing, they take some of that old idea of, like, the big puffy hair, but they Einstein him instead a little bit. Like, you know how, like, the traditional conception of Albert Einstein is this weird genius with wild, curly hair? They basically take that and integrate that into Heimerdinger's design and make the hair much more explicitly hair and not exposed brain matter, but they still keep the whole, like, giant head idea to make him look like he has a big brain character. And there's a couple of other clever things, like the goggles being used to give him these big eyes, but also to depersonalize him a little bit. Like, he's always looking at the world through a filter, through glass. He's always looking at the world through the lens of science. Which, like, does a good job. The one thing I'd criticize about Heimerdinger's character design is, like, his outfit. He just wears, like, a coat, where it should have been a lab coat or some kind of engineer's outfit, like something that looks more recognizably like an inventor's something something, is like the one thing I'd criticize about his look. But other than that, he's like a perfectly solid, like a A/B tier. And I'm probably going to put him in B because he's not that remarkable. But he's a perfectly solid little character design. That works quite well. And like you get the sense of like absent-minded professor from him. Yeah, that works. And then there's my girl. My girl Illaoi. Oh, there were some super chats. Why is hot nude fencer ladies in your Google search history? It's for League of Legends research, I swear! Well, actually, I wonder if I can find it. Let's see. Yes, here it is. The reason why I have that is because of a book called Athlete by Howard Schatz. And I'm just going to plug my own Twitter here. Howard Schatz is a photographer who took a series of photographs of Olympic athletes in various fields. And it's one of the best pieces of reference and research that you can have for character design when it comes to designing warrior characters especially. Every single one of these women is a top-tier Olympic-level athlete in their field. So we've got a basketball player. I think she's a gymnast. And there's a runner, and she's definitely like a rhythmic gymnast. This is a boxer, I think, and this is a weightlifter. And it's one of my favorite photo series because it's a display of the ways in which, like, the ways we visually represent power are completely out of sync with what actual power is. And you can see that especially in the contrast here. This is Shane Hammond. He's an Olympic champion weightlifter. Look how his body is constructed. Over here we have King Kamali. He's an Olympic champion bodybuilder. Look what his body looks like. This man right here is much, 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 much stronger than this man over here. Bodybuilders sculpt their bodies to look a certain way, and this has become the visual standard that we tend to use for representations of power, especially when it comes to superheroes. You can see that influence in Braum, especially. But actual power, actual physical strength, looks like this. It looks thick. It looks, well, fat, basically. And that's like something that's always bothered me about, especially female characters in League of Legends, is that top level, the peak of human performance can look all of these ways. But in League of Legends, they all just fucking look like the same titty babe over and over again. Anyway, good segue into Illaoi. Because Illaoi is... Yeah, bodybuilders are not that strong. They really aren't, especially not when they're getting ready to show for a competition, because then they dehydrate themselves and don't eat very much for a long time. So they're actually at their weakest when they're showing off for a competition. Anyway, Illaoi leads us into that quite nicely because she's that rare character in League of Legends, that rare woman who actually gets to have some bodybuilder qualities, who gets to have, like, big fucking muscles on her to be built like a brick shithouse, as she kind of should be. Because her whole, like, Illaoi's whole story, the whole concept of her character as a whole, is that she's a priestess of this cult of Nagakeboros. And Nagakeboros as an entity, as a deity, is obsessed with, like, moving forwards, having strength of will, having strength to overcome various trials, improving your mettle, improving your strength, and so on. Like, constant change for the better is the ideology of Nagakeboros as a cult. And Illaoi represents that pretty well, like someone who's from a cult that is obsessed with strength and power, and like strength of will, and strength of purpose. Yeah, she probably should be built like a brick shit house. She's also the first time that Illaoi was, Bilgewater rather, was fully introduced to the aesthetics of the Buru, which is, like I mentioned earlier, is an island cult, like a set of island peoples whose aesthetic is alternately based on Mesoamerican and like Pacific Islander culture aesthetics. And that blending, at least in my opinion, is really, really successful. It creates a really interesting visual universe to kind of contrast against the sort of more generic European-esque pirate aesthetics of Bilgewater, and the fusion between the two is really solid. And as people have pointed out in chat, yes, Illaoi and Gangplank canonically have fucked. They have fucked a lot. So, you know, I leave you with that mental image. And if you're not weak, you'll find it hot. Anyway, I like Illaoi a lot. Like, not necessarily because her character design itself is that exceptional, because, like, it is pretty. Like, she's got the chest plate and the something, I don't know what this thing is that she's wearing around her waist, and like the loincloth and boots and pants and a glove, like it in itself, it's not that remarkable. It's not in itself that interesting. But as a contrast to what female bodies in League of Legends generally tends to look like, she's remarkable just because she's something different for once. She's the only woman in League of Legends who looks remotely like this. The only one! We have 30 titty babes, but only one woman whose arms are like thicker than a stick. And just on that alone, like on that uniqueness, and she's also not just unique to League of Legends, but she's unique in gaming in general, where like a lot of the time we don't get women who look like they could bench press more than a couple of pounds, you know? That for me puts her in an S tier, because like she's completely unique to League of Legends with the Buru aesthetic, with like the Mesoamerican and Pacific Islander aesthetics being melded together into her. She's very unique to League of Legends, and she's, like, unique in gaming as a whole, just because you don't get a lot of women who look like this at all. So for me, that's an S tier. Speaking of S tier, guess who's not gonna be there? Irelia. Irelia. Remember how I talked about how I'm kind of annoyed with League of Legends because they just do the same titty babe over and over and over again? Yeah... Rek'Sai, we'll talk about Rek'Sai. Yeah, Irelia is kind of that. Now, there's a couple of ameliorating circumstances with Irelia. Irelia is the blade dancer. Like, she's specifically supposed to be a dancer. And in that sense, yes, like, sure, you could give her the whole, like, you can make her, like, the hot woman thing, and then have her have soft power rather than hard power. Dancing around, like swaying, using circular motion, like, yeah, I kind of see that, like the Tai Chi aesthetic kind of thing as a whole. But then again, like, what does a ballet dancer look like? What does a really high-level swing dancer look like? And it tends to not be very thick thighs and big titty. Like, there's a tendency towards that, because the kinds of lifestyle that you have to have that kind of body, and the same thing for female martial arts practitioners, doesn't tend to lend itself to this kind of fat distribution, basically. So, whatever. I don't care about realism that much. Like, I really don't care that much about realism. That's not really the thing. It's just, you tell me that this woman has been a war leader since the age of 16, that she is like a cultural leader for her people, who has been in multiple battles, who has taken multiple injuries, and has been fighting Noxus since she was like basically a child, and who's barely straining to hold together an uneasy coalition of Ionian nationalists and hopeful traditionalists, that she's like trying to find a compromise with Karma's people, like that, all of that stuff is supposed to be going on. And it's like, all those aspects of her character just aren't there. She doesn't look like it to me at all. There's no sense of her as a war leader. There's no sense of her as like a traumatized survivor of battle. There's no sense of her as someone holding together a political coalition with both hands. None of that is reflected in her design, because her design is only interested in the whole blade dancer thing, which, like, fair enough, I guess. But characters like Karma and Swain managed to integrate, like, the duality of both being a war leader and a political leader pretty well, and so for me it's always been disappointing that Irelia didn't do it. And then there's her armor. Like, her armor bothers me so much, because... because look at it. Look at this shit. She's got spikes poking into her own tits. She's got spikes on... like, if she bends forward too much, those things are gonna stab her in the sternum. And this spike right here, again, like, if she makes one wrong move, she stabs herself. And I don't get that. We'll talk about that more, by the way, once we talk about Kayle, because she has one of the most egregious sternum spikes I've ever seen in the game. And that's something, like, where you can tell that the priority for designing this armor was aesthetic pleasure. And there's some justification for that, in that she's a blade dancer. She's not supposed to be outfitted like a soldier, but it's still, like, she's supposed to be flexible, right? She's supposed to have freedom of movement. She's supposed to be able to flow and move in all kinds of smooth motions and like bending around herself and be flexible. But then everything about her armor says inflexible. Everything about her armor says don't bend ever, because if you do, you die. And that, like, that to me is just, like, not very solid armor design. Like, that's armor design that doesn't actually consider the character that the armor is supposed to go on. Anyway, Irelia gets to go in B tier, because, like, she's, like, I mean, I want to put her in C, but she's, like, yeah, fuck it, C tier. Not B tier, C tier. I think boob plate would situationally actually fit Irelia. Yeah, it could, actually. It could, because she has this dancer aesthetic to her. Like, you could justify a boob plate on Irelia. Ivern. I want to put Ivern in S tier, because as the Green Father, as, like, this forest spirit who's a friend to animals, and who's, like, just this lovely, whimsical, happy, pleasant father figure for the entire forest, he's damn near perfect. Like, he's damn near perfect. I really like Ivern's long, lanky, willowy, kind of wispy character design. I like the cartoonishness of his motions. I like how well they use tree roots and tree aesthetics to give him this big tree beard thing and these mushroom arms and things like that. I love all of that about him. The one thing that brings Ivern down, like the one thing, is his lore. Because Ivern, in case you didn't know, used to be a Freljordian warlord who just murdered people a lot and was terrible and did bad things, and then one day he went to Ionia because he wanted to find a magic tree because of some reasons, and he murdered a lot of Ionians, and he was very bad and mean, and then he cut down a god tree, and that was bad, but then the god tree turned him into magical green forest father Ivern, and now he's nice. And I don't like Ivern's lore at all, because they introduced this whole thing about how he used to be a cruel warlord, and he used to kill people, and he used to murder and raid and pillage and be the worst man ever, and then you kind of just snap your fingers, like, poof, skip ahead, and now he's just nice. He's just nice. Like, the whole past as a murderer, the whole human past, the whole thing about having once been a warlord of the Freljord, all of that is like, it's just framed as like, this is such ancient history that it might as well not be part of his fucking character anymore at all. His entire character arc that he should have had from learning to be more compassionate about nature, all of that has just been taken care of already. Like, that happened 2,000 years ago, pretty much, and he's like, now he's completely, fully formed into the character of the Green Father and has pretty much forgotten everything about what it is to be human, and it doesn't matter at all. And that's fucking rankles me. Like, Ivern's story especially is that you introduce this whole thematic thing about, like, learning the cycle of nature and learning to have compassion for all living things thing. That should be a really strong character hook for him. But then you just go, oh yeah, that's all been resolved already. We don't want to tell any stories about that. He's just there now, and his personality is formed, and it's stuck where it is, and it's perfect. So that's the thing that rankles me. But that's his lore. That has nothing to do with his character design. So like, because I'm so pissed by the lore, I want to put him in A tier. But from a pure design perspective, he's an S tier character. Like, from a pure character design perspective, he is an S tier. He is very, very good. But it's just the fucking lore, man. Ugh. Rankles me. Ah. Anyone want to guess? Anyone want to guess? Say the line, everybody. S tier when naked. And so I will reiterate some of the stuff I said about Janna last time. Janna's whole concept is that she's supposed to be a wind goddess, kind of, sort of. Like, she's a magical wind spirit who was once a patron spirit of sailors, but has now become a patron spirit of song instead. And there's something really fucking clever about the way that they've reframed Janna's lore. Like, she used to be this spirit of the sea, this spirit of oh, good lord. Turns out YouTube auto-moderation censors the word naked. So I'm just seeing a bunch of withheld messages. Give me a second. There we go. there's a really clever reframing where she used to be a spirit of the sea, a spirit of the winds, who then fell out of favor, like people forgot about her, but then the people of Son started praying to her, because Son, of course, has no clean air. Like, she's a spirit of wind and clean air who becomes a patron spirit of a city that is fundamentally deeply polluted. Like, I really, really, really love that aspect to her lore. Like, that's such a fucking cool idea that a spirit of the sea finds a new home as a spirit of clean air in a city that's polluted. I wish fucking any of that came across in her character design. Like, any of it came across in her character design. The maritime aspect, like, have her wear clothing that looks like she's, like, be a sailor person or something. I don't know, something that's connected to the sea? Nope. Okay, then, if she's a wind spirit of clean air, then maybe have her wear big flowing robes that can really billow with the wind and really, like, flow around her and fly around. Nope. What do we do with Janna? We just put her in a fucking bra and panties. Bra and panties. That's Janna. She's bra and panties. And they should just have made her naked. This is what I said the last time around. Like, if you want to go with the whole she's like a sexy wind spirit because sailors are horny for her or whatever, fine. Then make her naked. Like, make her be enveloped in a rotating storm or something that just always covers up the naughty bits. Like, in the same way that Evelyn has this, like, black goo that flows over her body that just, like, barely covers up her titties and her sexy bits. Do the same thing with Janna, but use wind instead. Like, there's always a gust of wind kind of just whiting out, just barely preventing you from seeing the good bits. That would make her S tier. Like, that, fuck it, go for it. Like, go hard on making her the sexy wind spirit. Actually go for it. Take a risk there. Actually risk a little bit of censorship. Risk a slightly higher age rating. Do that. Go for it. And she would be S tier if she was naked. Like, I stand by that. That's not just a joke. If they had the guts to actually make her naked, she would be S tier. But because she's just a lady in fucking bra and panties, and she looks nothing like a wind spirit, and she looks nothing like a maritime spirit, and she looks like nothing, she's C tier. Because this is just a boring titty babe. Again, a titty babe. For no fucking reason. So, you know, there's that. But yes, S tier when naked. I stand by it. And that's the thing, is like, if you want to make fan service, if you want to make titty babes, if you just want to get fucking horny all over the place, I fully support that. Holy shit, yes, I would love League of Legends to be a hornier game. I wouldn't mind that at all. But then you also have to have the actual guts to go through with it. Like, you actually have to have the guts to risk censorship. You have to have the guts to go for it. And also, you have to make the dudes sexy as well. Like, you have to have bulges and crotch shots and asses and, like, cum gutters. You have to go the whole hog. That half measure thing where it's like, oh, we have sexy titty babes, but then nothing else, and the titty babes aren't even that sexy. Halfway measures. Not interesting. Anyway, Jarvan the Fourth has the... Remember how with Garen, we talked about how Demacia's aesthetics has kind of moved on since he was designed? Yeah, Jarvan the Fourth has kind of the same problem. I'm trying to find something on Universe, but I think I can only find it on the world map. Give me a sec. Let's see, where is the Jarvan? There he is. Hello. This is what Prince Jarvan canonically looks like in League of Legends lore right now. This is Jarvan the Fourth. This is him. This, you can find this on the universe. It's under the Demacian bit of the map. And this is a really, really good character design for a king or prince of Demacia. This is a really good character design for that, because he has that stark white and gold aesthetic that defines so much of like the Demacian walls and the Demacian aesthetic. This looks really, really good and looks really, really solid and expresses Jarvan as a leader of the Demacian kingdom, that quasi-fascist eugenicist state, like that has this obsession with purity that comes through in their aesthetic. That's a very good character design. This is a fucking mess. Like, this is just, I don't know what the fuck this is. So, I believe in the original lore, the idea behind Jarvan's armor was that it was parts from a dragon that had been slain, and they kind of crafted that into armor. And so that's why he has these fucking weirdo shoulder spikes and this kind of organic look to his armor for some reason. That ain't true anymore. Like, the game has very much moved on around Jarvan the Fourth, and now this character design, like, just between those asymmetrical, ridiculous-looking dumbass spikes and this, I don't know what the fuck his armor is supposed to be. Like, I genuinely, like, because you got this tiny bit of golden chestplate stuff, but then what the fuck is he wearing underneath? Is that a bodysuit? Is that leather? What is that? What's he wearing? What the hell is this armor even supposed to be? I don't know. He doesn't look like an armored warrior especially, because like with this bodysuit thing, he looks vulnerable all the time, which is dumb. He doesn't look like he's a Demacian ruler, because nothing about this aesthetic correlates with Demacia whatsoever. And he also doesn't look cool. Like, this just looks awkward and bulky and dumb. He doesn't look cool. He doesn't look badass. He doesn't look dangerous. He's just... Jarvan the Fourth sucks. Like, his redesign, the one that you can find on the universe right now, like the one that's on the map, that's pretty good. I'd probably put that at an A tier, but he fucking sucks. Like, base Jarvan right now fucking sucks. He's terrible. I don't like him at all. And even the splash art, like, it looks better, but it's still not good. Like, what the fuck are those spikes supposed to be? This is just a train wreck of a character design. Speaking of, like, here we have something slightly opposite to Jarvan and Garen. Like, Jarvan and Garen are two characters where the game has kind of moved on around them. The game has kind of left them behind in a lot of ways. Jax is a really interesting example of the exact opposite. So, Jax in his original lore, back when he was first added to the game, was Jax the Grand Master. And he was this mysterious random soldier, this guardsman, who just turned out to be like the best warrior who ever fucking lived ever, and just completely dominated the competition of the League of Legends, until they had to literally nerf him by forcing him to only fight with a lamp. Like, they basically denied him the opportunity to use weapons that made him so fucking overpowered. So in the lore, in the narrative of the game, they had to literally nerf him to bring him into line. And that's why Jax decides to run around fighting people with a lamp, because he can still beat them with a lamp, and it's his way to basically disrespect his opponents and style on them. That's what it used to be. Then the 2014 lore retcon hits, and the League of Legends vanishes from the lore of League of Legends. There's no more summoners, there's no more competition. Jax loses his entire reason for existence. All of his lore is just out the window, down the drain, and completely fucking gone. And it stays that way for a long, long time, until very, very recently, where Jax was reintroduced as Psyjax. That's his full name. He goes by Jax, but his full name is Psyjax, and then like a whole bunch of more fantasy bullshit names after that. And he is a warrior of Icathia. Icathia being a region of Shurima that was once part of the Shuriman Empire, but which rebelled against the Shuriman Empire. And as part of their rebellion, they tried to use the Void as a weapon of mass destruction. They summoned the Void, hoping that it would destroy the the Shuriman forces, but instead the Void did what the Void does, and consumed Icathia whole. Jax is one of the last survivors of the people of Icathia, and the really clever bit is that in one of the recent stories, they revealed that the lamp that Jax carries around, it's actually a magical lantern from Icathia. It was a beacon of sorts, a magical brazier that was designed to emit a kind of light that would hold the Void under control. It's one of the few weapons on the face of Runeterra that is actually capable of like beating back the Void because of the magics that it was infused with by the Mage Kings of Icathia. It's also part of the lore that its power has been fading over the centuries while Jax has been wandering the world. So it's not as powerful as it used to be. It's kind of broken and beaten up because he's been using it for a very long time. Jax is very, very old. He's centuries and centuries old, and he has been Void touched. Something about the Void has definitely affected him, and so he has dedicated his life to wandering the world looking for warriors who might be strong enough to help him stand against the Void when it finally comes, and maybe, just maybe, retake Icathia. People in the chat are talking about sand trolls. No, he's not a sand troll. He's an Icathian. And Riot have never quite clarified why he only has 3 fingers and stuff like that. Maybe that's something they'll address with a visual update. But he's supposed to be an Icathian, which might be like a race of people that lived there. That only had 3 fingers. But the reason why he's purple is because he's touched by the void. And so Jax is one of those characters where, like, his character design is kind of old and clunky and a little bit awkward and looks a little bit out of place in the world of League of Legends. But that kind of makes sense because he's the last Icathian, basically. Like, outside of Cillian, who's stuck in time. But he's basically one of the last Icathians. He's from a dead culture that doesn't really exist anymore. So it makes sense that he looks out of place and weird. It makes sense that he doesn't look like he quite belongs. And the lore updates that they've made are clever enough that I feel like that put, like, I would normally have put Jackson B or C tier, but I feel like that puts him in A tier. Like, because, yeah, it fits. Like, his lore and his character design correspond in a really nice way. And I think it works really well. Okay. I am going to take a short break and make myself some tea, because I can feel that my throat is starting to get a little bit sore. So, hang around, listen to some music, I'll turn it up for you, and I'll be right back. I have got myself a cup of tea, and we're ready to continue. Oh boy, we lost about 300 viewers to that break. That's fair enough. Let's see. Eric Alejandrino sent me a super chat that said, I'd love to see Gragas as an old war veteran of the Freljord. That would be a cool angle. Give him old armor that's half on but hangs out shirtless. Yeah, that would be a good angle for him. And it also, like, maybe that would explain his alcoholism, you know? Best girl in the game, I think you were talking about Janna there, and Wing of Shu said at least she's easy to cosplay. Yes, Janna is probably one of the easier cosplays in League of Legends. Except for the whole flowing bits with the, like, the trailing little streamers that she's got. I don't know about those. So, how are y'all doing? Are you having fun? Have you been enjoying yourself so far? I hope you have, because I certainly have. I love hearing myself talk. This is just a good time for me. Anyway, let's talk about the second most fucky fuckboy of Piltover, Jace, the Defender of Tomorrow. Yes, Dad. It's weird when people call me Daddy. So, Jace is the second most fucky fuckboy of Piltover. He looks like an asshole. Like, he has this Don Draper look, but even more douchey. Which I've always found kind of funny, because the original conception of Jace was that he was supposed to be like the hero guy of Piltover, like the upstanding, good citizen, heroic inventor of Piltover. The man who has, like, the Iron Man, basically, like the guy who's made this fantastic invention and who uses it to defend good and right from the encroachments of evil, blah, blah, blah. That was sort of what he was supposed to be, but I have never been able to look at his splash art, like, ever in my life, and seen that face and not gone, oh yeah, no, that's a fucking dude. Like, that guy harasses women on Twitter. Like, this guy thinks Ben Shapiro is really cool. I can't look at that and think anything other than this is some kind of crypto-fash piece of, like, just the character design. But that's me. That's just my particular bias. Now, what's interesting is that most recently, the most recent lore update for Jace actually kind of leaned into that a little bit and made Jace this kind of uncompromising, self-absorbed, self-obsessed, like, dickhead inventor who's, like, too obsessed with his own genius and, like, with his own quest for knowledge and understanding, that he becomes this kind of standoffish jerk genius. Like, people respect him and because he's a really, really fucking good inventor, but he has no social graces whatsoever. He's very rude, he's very unpleasant, he doesn't care about anyone else's opinions. And so they kind of leaned into the Jace douche kind of thing a little bit more, with him eventually coming around to, okay, maybe I should do some heroic stuff also and stop being such a complete asshole all of the time. But very much coming from a starting point of just being kind of a jerkbag. And that then ties into his story with Victor, where Jace ultimately ends up being like, well, Victor, it's very nice that you're trying to improve lives for people, but you can't just take away their free will and their bodily autonomy. Like, Jace comes to have a moral core about these things where, like, you can't just take away people's minds. You can't just take away people's bodies. That's immoral. You can't force people to evolve like that, where Victor goes, no, glorious evolution, blah, blah, blah. And that's the thing that ultimately pushes Jace to behave a little bit more heroically, like to actually put his body on the line to protect other people, because he has some principles that he actually believes in. And I quite like that. Like, I quite like that they kind of took the slightly douchey-looking aspect of his original character design and leaned into it a little bit in a way that would make for a compelling and interesting character arc. Now, as for his character design itself, it's like, you can tell that he's from kind of early days of League of Legends and Piltover, because he doesn't really look that much like a Hex Tech warrior, does he? Like, a lot of, like, in his splash art, you can kind of see the dynamic, electric, pulse blast, blah, blah, hammer thing. But as for the rest of his character design, like, you have all these gears that are just kind of there because I don't know, steampunk, blah, blah. But it doesn't really look that grounded in Piltover. And that's just one of the artifacts of him just kind of being an old character. And so, normally I would have put him in C tier, because he just looks like such a douche, but because they've actually kind of leaned into that and made it part of his character, I feel like he belongs in B tier now. Like, not great, but not terrible, and a character design that actually reflects some of his personality and what he's actually supposed to be about. Which moves us on to Jhin. Now, I might as well get this out of the way right away. Jhin is S tier. Like, Jhin is fantastic. I love Jhin. There's so much good stuff to talk about when it comes to Jhin. Now, I've never been a huge fan of his splash art, because what it's trying to do with this thing is like you have this shattered mirror with like a bullet hole where Jhin has fired a bullet into it, and so you have this cracked mirror, much like Jhin himself is cracked, like he's insane, he's crazy. But because of the particulars of his weird anatomy and the way that his cloak covers up most of his body, it just kind of, like, it just looks so disproportional and weird. It doesn't look distorted, it just looks like Jhin is drawn wrong, at least to me in the splash art. But anyway, Jhin is fantastic. His character, Super Chat, I'll deal with that in a second. His character design is absolutely fantastic, and there's two things I want to highlight about him especially. Number one is the asymmetry. This is something that Jhin also talks about in his voice lines and in his lore, is that he has this particular warped perception of what beauty is that very much includes asymmetry. He finds symmetry boring, but he likes considered, studied asymmetry, which is what he does with this cloak that he wears, this dramatic theater-like cloak that he wears over his shoulder. The second thing that's very clever is that the thing that the cloak is covering up, the little surprise that he's got hidden for you, is his super powerful Hextech gun arm thing that he walks around with, where once he decides to fire off his ultimate, he reveals these four canisters, these four cylinders of powerful shot that he's using to channel magic through and, well, snipe you and completely fucking murder you many, many times over and over again in lane, if my experience is anything to go by. So you have this asymmetry, like, that makes him look kind of monstrous and hunchbacked. Like, it makes him look weird and off-putting, but which also ties in deeply to his personal aesthetic and to his personal thematics, and that's just really, really well executed. The other thing that's really well executed about Jhin is that he's so fucking theatrical. Like, he's such a fucking drama queen, and you can tell. Like, even if he wasn't making this ridiculous theater kid pose right now, you can tell just from the mask and the orange-white cloak with the designs on it, and the pants and the thing, you can tell that this guy is a drama queen. You can tell he has a flair for the dramatic. You can tell that he loves putting on a show, which again is such a perfect reflection of his character. And you can also tell that he's a sociopathic murder killer, because he's got the mask on and he's got the robot arm and he's got this sharp, not edgy in the sense of being like Shadow the Hedgehog, but edgy in the sense of like there's a lot of edges and a lot of pointiness and slenderness to his character design that really sells the idea of him as a dangerous, murderous killer as well. So Jhin is fantastic. I love Jhin. He's a fantastic character design. Someone else who gets to go in S tier is Jinx. And again, part of the reason why it's the same thing with Illaoi is that Jinx is one of those few League of Legends characters who actually isn't just another generic fantasy titty babe. She's someone who's super, super thin and skinny, but where that's kind of part of the point of the character is that she is, like, almost emaciated, almost kind of, like, unnaturally skinny a little bit, but that's part of her character. Like, that's part of her character is that she looks like this girl. Everyone knows that one person who has this super high metabolism and who's incredibly thin, but who has a terribly unhealthy lifestyle. That's what Jinx looks like. And they lean into that by making her super pale as well. This comes across better in her splash art, but that she is, like, incredibly pale and almost kind of looks like she's an albino who's dyed her hair. Which, again, is just different. Like, that's just different from the majority of other League of Legends women, and that bumps it up a notch from the A tier, where it would probably be, if not for that. The other thing I love about Jinx is the punk aesthetic, like the genuine punk aesthetic, not just this sort of pop punk aesthetic, but the whole thing about, like, the combat boots and the completely mismatched clothes, and, like, the padding, and the sexualization also. She is sexualized, but she doesn't seem, at least to me, to be especially sexualized for, like, male titillation. She's sexualized in the sense that she has this free spirit energy about her that ties in very nicely to her punk aesthetic. I love the long pigtails, for example, which, like, when something is highly sexualized for the male gaze, you tend to see stuff like pigtails used to create this kind of, oh, cutesy little girl, oh, Mr. Turner, I'll do anything if you give me an 8, like that kind of infantilization. With Jinx, both because the ponytails are so incredibly long and because she's dyed all of them, they give a very different expression of wildness to her that doesn't feel infantilizing, at least not to me, but feels like part of her, like, random, weird, capricious, party-loving, fun-loving, but also dangerous nature. And that also comes across, like, the eyes and the smile and the face are the thing with Jinx. Especially if you look at the Tales of Runeterra short from Piltover, where it's very much the face that sells the crazy. She is for lesbians, says Manu Nani. Yeah, probably. And that really sells the crazy about her. Like, she's a manic pixie dream girl, but she's the kind of manic pixie dream girl who will fucking murder you and who doesn't care if her manic pixie dream girlness makes your life better. Like, she's kind of a subversion of that whole Riot Girl, pixie dream girl thing that goes on. It's nice. It's unique. I don't think you will ever see another champion, like, or I don't think you see a lot of other characters in other games that look like her, that have that same aesthetic, that have that same expression. Like with Fishbones, especially in her relationship to that rocket launcher, just absolutely lovely. Jinx is great. Anyway, there was a super chat. J. Navarro Bellavance, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Hey Skyn, big fan for the last few years. Off topic, do you feel like certain skins rep the character better than the base? There's obviously ones, but I feel like DC Jhin is a better unhinged artist than the canon one. I don't think so about Jhin, but like I've talked about, Ashe would be much better represented by Queen Ashe, at least in my opinion. And I feel like also, we'll get to that later, but Misfortune is another one of those characters where there's a skin that should actually just be her base skin now, and the base skin should be an alternate. But we'll get to that when we get to her. So we go from Jinx, who's a very nice, like, expression of something that doesn't seem to be just blatantly sexualized for the male gaze, to Scarlett Johansson in a Void cosplay. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about Caixa, aren't we? Oh, that's a big super chat. Let me just get to that one first. AUCL2247, thank you for that. That's very generous of you. Love your videos and got my friend to enjoy your Dark Souls content. Looking forward to that continuing, and he's really looking forward to Bloodborne. So am I. Maybe not the right place for this, but I'm not normally around for your streams. Out of letters, B. Yes, B. B's in chat. B's in chat. Anyway, Caixa sucks. Caixa's... God damn it. And I have ranted about her so much that I kind of feel like it's redundant to do it again. But let's just run down the greatest hit list. Caixa is a child who fell into the void and who barely managed to survive by bonding with a void symbiote that kept her alive and gave her the power to fight back against the void. For the last over a decade, she has done nothing but fight against the void. Day in, day out, every day of her life has been nothing but combat and desperate survival against an overwhelming extra-dimensional foe. The only weapon against which she has is to bond with something that comes from the void, a monster that threatens to make her a monster like it. How is this expressed in her character design? It fucking isn't! It isn't expressed in her character design. She's just like fucking Scarlett Johansson with her big titty and her big booty, and she's slender and her face is perfect, and she's wearing makeup for some fucking reason, and her makeup is perfect and her eyebrows are plucked, and she's got long hair somehow. I don't know how the fuck you keep long hair and like just cut it off instead of making. Ooh, I got a little hyphy there. Caixa fucking sucks. Like, just as a character design, everything that she's supposed to express, everything that her story and concept is about, isn't in her character design at all. Like, oh man, I get so frustrated by her. I'm so frustrated by Caixa because she's an example of all the worst part of generic fantasy titty babe design, where you have all these interesting character design opportunities, like these tools that you can use to create a really interesting and fascinating character. Like, you can give her battle scars, you can give her like really powerful and defined musculature. You could have her have like one of her arms has been cut off by a void monster and completely replaced by the symbiote, kind of emphasizing this idea that she's both not a void monster but also at risk of kind of being taken over by the, like, becoming like the thing that she hates. You could do all kinds of interesting, cool, fascinating, fun things with everything about her concept, but what they did was, as titty, booty, cleavage, hot girl. And it's, I don't like saying that, like, the artists that write are lazy, because they almost never are. Like, a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of hard work went into creating Caixa. It wasn't something they just slapped together in an afternoon and tossed into the game without putting effort into it. But from an aesthetic perspective, it's lazy. It's lazy. Like, it's lazy to just go, oh yeah, void survivor fighting against the void for 10 years, bonded to a monster symbiote, titty babe in a body condom. Aesthetically, that's lazy. Like, and it rankles me. Like, but anyway, let's move on from this before I start going into another long-ass rant. This is F tier fucker. I need a sip of tea. Once again, Scarlett Johansson removes proper representation from another group. Yeah, I mean, she looks so much like Scarlett Johansson in her splash art. It's ridiculous. Warm tea. Moving on to something much, much better. Calista. Another one of Riot's experimental designs where they tried for something different in the aesthetics that they were using for their female characters. And Calista is another one of the designs that I would consider a big success in that regard. Now, one thing I don't like about Calista, which I don't like about a lot of characters, is the boob plate. Like, for me, boob plate is always kind of just annoying because it's inefficient armor design, and a lot of the times it kind of undercuts the point of the character, because Calista, her story is that she was the trusted, powerful, hyper-competent, loyal retainer of the ruined king before he ruined everything and fucked up the entire Blessed Isles into the Shadow Isles. She was his loyal retainer, his loyal knight, and like a respected warrior at his court. And the boot plate is like, why would you wear that if you're this thing? And that's why I don't like boot plate. But anyway, that doesn't matter. It's not that important. What's really good about Calista is that she's a spirit of vengeance. Like, her whole thing is she was betrayed by her lord. She was betrayed by his knights, specifically by Hecarim. And so, as a ghost, as a spirit, she has dedicated her entire existence, her continued undeath, to taking vengeance on betrayers of all kinds. And that is reflected in her character design through all of this. Like, this emaciated, wiry, spindly... Like, she doesn't look... She looks thin, but she also looks like she has a lot of powerful muscle, like, sort of hanging on underneath the skin. No fat, but lots of, like, wiry, spindly strength and agility tied into her, which is where I kind of like the quasi-Roman design that she's got going on. First of all, because that evokes ancient cultures, but also because it gives her, like, her legs room to breathe, because she has the whole, thing with the auto attack where she jumps around, which is emphasized, like, that agility in her legs. But I like the emaciation. I like how unnaturally thin she is. Like, this is one of those situations where, like, yeah, she's someone who is starving for vengeance. Like, her whole personality and personhood is deprivation of the one thing that she craves more than anything else. That's the one thing that she can't have. So yeah, having her be, like, rake thin and all, like, oh, that's a very good character design. I like Calista a lot. And again, I also just like her because she's different. Like, she's not the goddamn generic titty babe, which is why, yeah, she, to me, is an S tier. Which leads us on naturally to, Karma. Karma is another one of the titty babes. Like, another one of the, like, the ladies who are hot just kind of to be hot. Hot lady because hot lady, because, I don't know, she's hot. Which is one of those unconsidered design decisions that I don't really like. But let's start with the stuff that I do like about Karma. I really like her wings and, like, the yin-yang dragon things that float above her head. I like the design of her robes. I like how they look really impractical and ceremonial, because she is a religious leader. Like, she's essentially the Dalai Lama of Ionia, as it were. Like, there's a lot of really good character design going on. The one thing that just kind of bothers me about Karma is, like, okay, so she's a fucking hottie because because when you're dealing with, like, a Dalai Lama character, which is literally what she is, like a reincarnating religious leader who returns over and over again, who is associated with the magical Asian place that's in the League of Legends world. Like, the Buddha, for example, is often associated with fatness, like with an excess of life, with an excess of spirit and generosity. The Buddha is often associated with deprivation, asceticism, complete thinness, complete deprivation. None of those things seem to be incorporated into, like, there's none of using the rest of her body as a canvas on which to paint ideas about what the tenets of her religion incorporates. Like, does her religion mandate strict asceticism? Like, does she have to deny herself pleasures and food and stay, like, sort of physically pure in some way? Can't really tell, because she looks perfectly well fed, frankly. Like, she looks or does it demand that you indulge, that you, like, embrace some level of hedonism, that you like overstuff yourself a little bit? No, it's just like can't really. How does her religion affect her body? What is her, because she's the exemplar, she's the highest example of the religious order that she leads. Like, she is the image of what that is supposed to be like. And it's just a hot lady. And that, to me, is a little bit like, there were some opportunities here to use the design space that is afforded by the body itself to do something more interesting than yet another hot girl. And it, again, it's a problem of, like, if League of Legends didn't already have like 30 of these, it wouldn't be a problem. I probably wouldn't mind or consider it noteworthy at all. But because League of Legends already has 30, the question I raise is, like, okay, so why not do anything different? Like, why not take the opportunity to do something else? So she's fine. Like, there's a lot of good stuff there. It's whatever. But she's B tier for me. Karthus. I like Karthus a lot. I have some nitpicks about him, but I like Karthus a lot. Like, his when he was redesigned, it was a really big upgrade for him, because it redefined him into a religious aesthetic that he really kind of needs. So the lore for Karthus is that he's this weirdo kid who basically grows up as a kind of undertaker and who becomes really, really, like, just creepily fascinated with death. Like, just, wow, just likes it way too much. and becomes obsessed with the Shadow Isles and with the idea of living in eternal death, in eternal undeath, transcending mortality, in a sense. And eventually he does go to the Shadow Isles, and when the Black Mist comes for him, rather than be absorbed by it or consumed by it, his devotion to death and his fucking weirdness and creepiness allows him to transcend into the form that you see here, and he becomes Karthus, the Death Singer. This kind of pontiff looking like a bishop, basically, a bishop of death who sings dirges for the dead and the dying, ushering them into the eternal afterlife that he considers paradise. And so that religious iconography in his outfit, like the big shoulder pauldrons, the Pope hat, the long flowing robes, the staff, and the book, all of that works together really well to create that character. The one thing I feel like Karthus is missing in his character design is the second part of his title, the Death Singer. There's a lack of musical aesthetic going on here, and that's where, like, the thing I would have done, like, you can kind of see them doing it in his splash art, but, like, highlight his mouth. Highlight the mouth with, like trails of spirit magic coming out of it, or just, like, glowing, or make it just extra big. Or maybe even do, like, the Mouth of Sauron thing, if anyone remembers that deleted scene from Lord of the Rings, where instead of having his eyes visible, have the hat cover his eyes so that only his mouth is visible, and then make the mouth extra large to really emphasize the idea of him as a death singer, someone who's constantly singing dirges over and over. That's my little nitpick with Karthus. And that's the kind of, for me, that's the thing that keeps him from being S tier, but he's certainly an A tier champion, and he probably could be S tier if I didn't have nitpicks. Moving on to Void Daddy Kassadin. Kassadin isn't that great. He's like... I mean, So Kassadin had a visual update. Some of you may remember a while back. Original in League of Legends, Kassadin looked the way that he does because, well, they didn't want to model his legs, because the legs are difficult to model and makes animation harder. So they gave him this robe down around his waist. Just don't have to model his legs. An easy way to save on work back in the day. But he has this, but even with his visual update, they tried sort of a smaller scale visual update where they didn't really change anything about the character. They just brought him up to standard with the modern League of Legends aesthetic. And that leaves him still, much like Ashe, much like Annie, deeply influenced by this Warcraft 3 aesthetic carried over from Dota back in the day, where this guy looks like some cultist from World of Warcraft that wandered into the wrong video game and just kind of stayed there for no reason with this Cthulhu-like mask thing and the horns and the shoulder things that, because I don't know why, and this ridiculous-looking robe thing, this pleated with metal rims, which makes no fucking sense whatsoever. So Kassadin is like, I don't think he's terrible, he's just, not very interesting. And in the lore of League of Legends, like, the appearance of the artifacts that he uses is justified by being some kind of eldritch artifact that's used by some ancient people, blah blah, travel the void, something something. Which, like, okay, fine, but still, nothing that he wears looks like it comes from the world of Runeterra at all. It doesn't even look like it comes from the Void, because the Void doesn't have this Cthulhu Bane mask aesthetic thing, like sort of H.R. Giger techno horror aesthetic thing at all. The Void is all like geometric and biological and cosmic horror, so he just doesn't fit in with anything, and it's like, so for me, he's a C tier. Like, he's not quite terrible enough to be an F, but he's in C tier because he's not, you know. Oh, by the way, also he's Caixia's father. That's never expanded upon. They never did anything with it, but theoretically that's true. Anyway, moving on to Catarina. Sip of tea. Catarina is one of those, let's see, Catarina splash art update. Is one of those champions that I have another salty little thing with, where, once again, we have the League of Legends community throwing a bit of a hissy fit about a lady champion not being hot enough for their preferences. Is this the one? I'm not sure it is, but basically, well, Catarina launched this when she got this splash art update. She had a much longer face, with a lot more character to it, at least in my opinion. That a lot of people got really annoyed by because she didn't look like the hot anime waifu that she'd looked like up until then. And so Riot, like cowards, listened to feedback, who does that, and went back and changed it to make her look more acceptably hot and boring. Anyway, that's my salt out of the way. Dealing with that. Done with that. Let's not talk about that anymore. Katarina herself is generic. She's kind of... She's like, yeah, she's a lady assassin with the red hair and the knives and the thing. And it's not bad. It's fine. It looks very Noxian. Again, much like Darius, Noxus's aesthetic was very well folded into the existing aesthetic of the champions that were supposed to be from Noxus. This is something we'll talk about more with Swain later. But Katarina herself is like this kind of very generic fantasy assassin character. With the titty out, because fantasy assassins have titty out, and knives, and red hair, and spikes on her boots because of things. But nothing about her really stands out. She looks Noxian. She looks fine for what she's supposed to be. She's just not that interesting as a character design, at least not in my opinion. Now, I used to be more annoyed by the whole cleavage titty out thing, until they did some updates to her character, where nowadays she is essentially a wild child. She has a bunch of daddy issues, but she's essentially a wild child, someone who is passionate and like very sure of herself and confident and very like who revels in her own physicality and power, but who was ostracized by her family and indeed had Talon attempted to assassinate her on the orders of her father because Katarina was out of control, too wild, wouldn't listen to instructions, wouldn't be humble. And so from that perspective, from that personality, yeah, it makes sense that she'd have her titty out. Like, she's a wild child. She's running around the world trying to prove herself, and she doesn't give a shit about what anyone else thinks. That aesthetic, yeah, that works fine. Like, the cleavage then becomes something more like something she owns for herself rather than just a thing that's there so that she looks pretty to others. So I'm kind of fine with it. Anyway, Katarina is fine. She's fine. Like, I'm tempted to put her in C tier, but she's fine. Like, the lore has kind of redeemed her a little bit for me there. And then there's Kayle. Another favorite punching bag of mine. So, let's just find her original look. I'm sure I can grab that from Google without any trouble whatsoever, right, Google? Right, Google? Right, Google? Google? Google, please? No, everything is a WebP and I can't access it. There we go, found one. Here's what Kayle used to look like. I've heard from a lot of League of Legends players that they didn't know Kayle was a woman for a long time because they never played her. They didn't hear her voice lines. They never knew that Kayle was a woman back in the day, which makes sense because, like, this is a fairly androgynous character. Like, there's some hourglass shape going on there, but it's a fairly androgynous character design. It's a standard avenging angel character design. Kind of boring, kind of generic, but there was still, like, there was a gender ambiguity to her that in the update they decided to pretty much just not bother with. Like, they want, in the update, and this is kind of fair enough, like, it's kind of fine, that in the update they were like, no, we want Kayle to be visibly feminine and female. We want her to be visibly a woman. And that's kind of fine. I just feel like it's a pity to lose one of the few, like, truly gender ambiguous characters in League of Legends like that. Like, where you have this character, like... And part of the reason why I think it's a pity is because in Kayle's new conception, she's this avatar of order. She's an aspect of Targon who's completely obsessed with divine order and absolute righteousness and complete black and white morality, irrespective of anything like, for example, personal identity, irrespective of context. Like, this justice is blind character that respects nothing, cares about nothing except the enactment of justice. And for that kind of a character, Androgyny fits them very well, like to have their personal identity wiped away by the shell of armor that they're wearing, completely wiping out their personal identity, their personal feelings, leaving only this cold, clinical, almost machine-like symbol of order itself. That would work really well for that, but they made the decision that they wanted her to be female, so fair enough. They also made the decision that Kayle should never, ever, 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 ever bend over forwards even a little bit. I don't know how she swings a sword around without instantly stabbing herself directly in the sternum, probably fatally, with these long-ass armor spikes on her armor. Like these, the gold spikes here around her, like fucking midriff, and the sternum spike, and like, my god. What the hell? And again, I don't give a shit about realism. In the case of League of Legends, like, realism really isn't that important. What's important is believability. And the thing is, when I look at her character design and I see that, the first thing I think is, like, that's not believable arm. Like, that doesn't look like it's... It doesn't look like it makes sense. I don't care if it's realistic at all, because it's not. Nothing about it is realistic. But it doesn't feel like it makes sense when I look at it. It feels like a really bad design oversight where someone was like, no, we want her to look cool. And so they created these really cool spikes on her, but didn't stop to think about how that looks when the character moves. Which is like, yeah, sternum spikes. It's a thing that happens a lot in fantasy art, and it bothers me specifically. The other thing that bothers me about Kayle is, like, again, like I talked about, her whole thing is that she's obsessed with ascending and becoming the perfect aspect of justice. Like, that's her whole obsession, is to cast away all human weaknesses and become a perfect, pure aspect with no trace of humanity left in her. That's her contrast with Morgana, where Morgana embraces her humanity and rejects the part of her that is an aspect. When Kayle levels up, she takes off her armor. She takes off her helmet. And again, armor and helmets are used so commonly to enact a totalizing negation of personal identity. Like, that's the most common way to use them, is to wipe out personal identity. Think of stormtroopers, for example. Actually, let me find that. This is an example I've used before. Rebel soldiers, rather. Let's see if I can find... There we go. So, contrast the stormtroopers of Star Wars. Fully armored, no faces. They have these skull-like helmets that make them appear like practically inhuman, that wipe out all personal identity and enact a totalizing negation where all of them are dressed in the exact same uniform, they are part of the exact same order, there is no personal identity, there is no personhood, there is only the faceless, nameless stormtrooper. Compare and contrast that with rebel soldiers in Star Wars. Face-revealing helmets. They have different outfits. Like, they have similar uniforms, but different outfits. They're dressed in earth colors. You can always see their faces. Some of them have beards. Some of them have mustaches. Some of them are old. Some of them are young. There is personal identity there. That's the framing that you get, where the rebels stand for, like, freedom, individual freedom, personal freedom, and, like, goodness and kindness, and the Empire stands for, like, generic, totalizing, domineering cruelty and evil. And like the eradication of all personal identity. This is like a very, very basic character design thing, which is why they use it in Star Wars, where everything is about as broad and generic as it can possibly get, because that's how the mythology of that universe works. And then Kayle levels up and comes closer and closer and closer to her ideal of being a total representation of justice with no humanity left in her. And she takes off her helmet and reveals her face. That's a bad decision. It's stupid, 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 and bad. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And consequently, Kayle, for me, goes right into F tier along with Caixa. Because it's that same problem again, where they prioritize things that really shouldn't fucking matter. Like, they prioritize things that would have worked fine on a completely different fucking character. And they didn't seem to have the consideration for, like, telling her story from her perspective. Anyway, That was the last of my tea. Moving on to dear little Kayn. Oh, Kayn. My adorable anime little edgelord. So, Kayn is an anime edgelord, and he was designed to be an anime edgelord. Like, this is, talk to the champion designers, this was literally the entire plan from the start, is that Kayn was gonna be their Sasuke. He was gonna be their anime edgelord, with the whole, oh, I'm torn between turning into a monster and becoming the shadow assassin I was always meant to be. I'm determined to serve my master in the order of like, that whole thing. He's a fucking Shadow the Hedgehog OC. Like, that's really what he is, and that's what he's supposed to be. And so, while it's easy to go, that's kind of cringeworthy and kind of annoying, that's like, kind of like criticizing a little person for being short, you know? Like, it's, no, that's what this is. This is an anime edgelord, and from that perspective, he's really well designed. Like, yes, this is a perfect representation of exactly that kind of thing. Is like, yeah, he's an anime edgelord. He looks exactly like, he has no shirt on for no fucking reason. He's being slowly corrupted by the demonic influence of his scythe. He's got a blue streak of hair. He's got anime hair, and he's got weird hammer pants because anime ninja. Yeah. In that sense, Kayn is like S tier, but I'm gonna put him in A tier just because I don't like him. I personally, like I said, I can see completely that everything about his character design makes perfect sense from the concept that it's proceeding from. But I think he's kind of annoying, and I don't like him. I do like Rost, though. Rost is pretty good. Rost is very fun. Rost has a great personality. He has some fantastic voice lines. He's just a really fun villain. And because of Rost, Kayn gets to go in S tier. Faked you out on that one, huh? But yeah, Rost puts Kayn into S tier. The Shadow Assassin is just Kayn, but even more edgelordy, so I don't care about that. But Rost pushes him up there. Please, God, give Rost lore. He's got a whole story they refuse to put out. I love him so much, but he doesn't even have a wiki page. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about most League of Legends champions is they have really cool concepts, but they never get any fucking lore or story. And that's Riot's persistent failure in terms of their management of their IP, is they have all these cool characters and then they never fucking do anything with most of them. Which, by the way, Kennen is a great example of that, because Kennen... Recently, Kennen got a lore update. Like, he got a story where he actually appears and does stuff. Which is, like, new. But that's the first and only story he has had since he was first added to the game. And when you look at his character model, you can see that he's a fucking old champion. He's a very old champion. And he hasn't had a single goddamn story, like, in I think, like, 7 years or something. He never got anything. Which is, like, Riot's persistent problem, is that they have 148 champions, but don't have the capacity to put out stories for, like, even a tenth of them at all. They're doing better recently, but yeah, I'll never stop criticizing them for that. Oh, Fabio, thank you for that super chat. Hey, finally caught a live stream. Hail Noxus. Also, thoughts on the new Volibear. Yes, we'll get to Volibear. He's on the list. Like, just stick around for another looks at watch 2.5 hours, maybe. Eric Alejandrino, gonna bring Kayn back to the village my ninja way. Yeah. So yeah, Kennen. He's another Yordle, and he has the Yordle problem, which is that at the time when they designed him, Riot didn't really know what the fuck Yordles were. And they kind of still don't, but Kennen became one of the Yordles who formed the basis for the recontextualization of the Yordles into these small, fuzzy creatures. Because he has those fake, like, hamster ears on his hoodie, which then became an inspiration for, okay, let's give all the Yordles big fuzzy ears. And I look forward to Kennen getting a visual update, like where he actually gets, like, more explicitly turned into a Yordle, and where he gets a design that's not just all purple all the time, and has a little bit more, like, a little bit more elegant lightning aesthetic. But outside of that, Kennen is like, he's a hamster ninja. There's kind of not a lot to say. He's just a ninja who also happens to be a small furry hamster creature. And that's kind of it. Like, there's some slight... You can see they have kind of a lightning motif with, like, the golden stripes on his suit, but why would a ninja wear bright gold on their suit? I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but... So Kennen is one of those, like... He's not great. He's not the most awful, but it's like... He's just a small furry ninja. How to improve on that? That's a fair point, Paradise Lost. I would actually lean in a lot. I would get rid of the purple, first of all. If I were to improve on Ken, and just kind of spitballing here, first of all, I get rid of the purple and gold motif. And rather, I would lean into something like a black and blue or black and white motif, where you have a Ken in a black ninja suit that actually looks like he's trying to hide from things. And use a white lightning motif, in sparingly, especially around the gloves and something like that. I would lean harder into his yordle nature, like give him larger ears. Kind of like similar to, what's that yordle in Legends of Runeterra where you play him and he gets like +2 on the turn that you play him, something like that. Like the yordles in Legends of Runeterra that are already there in the Kinku Order and in the Ionian region would serve as the foundation and inspiration for Kennen to make him less of just a generic pop culture ninja and more of an Ionian ninja. Like something that's closer in aesthetic to Akali, for example. Alright, Kha'Zix. AKA, please don't sue me, James Cameron. AKA, definitely not the alien, AKA, you know. Nabori Blade Scout, yes, that one. I'm gonna be annoying, but ninjas used to wear blue and indigo. Yes, this is true. Well, kiss with Y. If we want to get into that, there's no such thing as a ninja. Ninjas don't, like, they're not a real historical thing. At least not in the way that we understand them. And I don't want to get into it. You can read A Brief History of the Samurai by Jonathan Clements, where he goes into some of the detail about the historiography and the trouble with the ninja as a historical category. But basically, medieval Japan had lots of assassins and murderers and spies and saboteurs, lots of those, but they didn't really as such have a class of people who were called the ninja and who existed in like secret ninja clans living in the woods or having secret fortresses or indeed having mystical ninja powers. It's a name that has sort of been misapplied posthumously to a really large group of people who did all kinds of different sabotage and espionage and assassination missions and spying. And the more accurate term to use would be shinobi, because shinobi specifically means subterfuge. Like, it specifically means doing stuff which is, like, dishonorable. So ninjas are like a modern invention. They emerge in Japanese popular culture sometime around the 60s. Like, they don't really show up in the sources, in the historical sources before then. They are kind of invented in the 60s in pop culture. So this is just... Anyway, we were talking about Kha'Zix, weren't we? Yes, let's talk about space alien bad guy Bugman. So Kha'Zix is kind of an important character in the development of the Void in League of Legends. Because he is sort of like... Previous to him, we had Kog'Maw and Cho'Gath, I believe. They were pretty much the two only ones. And Kog'Maw and Cho'Gath look absolutely nothing alike. And also, Cho'Gath looks like the Violator from Spawn. They don't really have a clean aesthetic for what the hell they want the Void to be. With Kha'Zix, that's the first time they sort of start to zero in on what will eventually become the modern Void aesthetic. Oh, Naxeri, thank you very much for that super chat. You didn't say anything, but thank you. Kha'Zix is the first time they start to zero in on that kind of sleekness and the idea of the Void as an evolving enemy. Specifically, Kha'Zix is an enemy like who, if I remember his lore correctly, and I think it's not canon anymore, but his lore as it is that he comes to Runeterra and he begins to hunt and consume the various animals there and evolves a shape to fit the environment that he's in. Specifically, that used to be the Kumungu jungle. That I don't think that exists anymore, or if it does, it's an Ishtal. And so the reason why he looks like this bug praying mantis creature is because he's taken on the characteristics of the environment that he enters into when he comes to Runeterra. And this is something that then gets repurposed and recycled and reiterated upon in the modern conception of the Void. The Void still, like, tries to consume and absorb and shapes itself and its creatures into something that approximates the creatures that live in Runeterra. And Kha'Zix is like an important evolutionary step on that ladder. But from a modern perspective, he also doesn't look like a Void creature that much anymore. Like, he just looks like a big, evil purple bug man who lives in the jungle. Not so much an extra-dimensional cosmic horror come to Runeterra to destroy everything. So, he's an important evolutionary step, but he's kind of fallen out of step with what the Void is supposed to be nowadays. Still, as an alien monster design, he's fairly solid. Like, there's a lot of Zerg in there, there's a lot of Tyrannid, there's a lot of James Cameron's Alien, but it's mixed together in a fairly compelling way, and I really like the praying mantis claws that he runs around with. I really like the bug-like aspect of him. Ah yes, the Necrit song, also known as Teric's theme. Which leads us on to furry bait, the Kindred, which are... Well, I mean, I might as well get this out of the way right away. Fantastic. I love the Kindred. The Kindred are a great character design. So, as far as I can make out from some of the stuff that I've seen around, the Kindred is kind of a complex thing. Kindred are the lamb and the wolf, who are two aspects of death on Runeterra. They're not as such gods of death in the sense that we might understand it, but they are spirits of death. They are manifestations of death that appear under certain circumstances. For example, the Noxians worship the wolf. They crave the wolf because when death comes for them, they want to flee it. Like, they want to fight it with all their strength, and eventually the wolf will chase them down and get them on the hunt, but they don't, like, sit down and lay down and wait for Kindred to come and finish them off with arrows. They go on the chase and the hunt. The Demacians, on the other hand, tend to favor the lamb. They tend to favor going gracefully into that good night and accepting your death with dignity and grace, rather than struggling wildly against it. And so, various aspects of Runeterran culture responds to this spirit of death, the lamb and the wolf, in different ways. And so, for example, in the Freljord, you'll often see representations of the wolf. But in Shurima, I believe they have more of an affinity for the lamb. And then there's... It seems to me, this is me guessing, but it seems to me that Riot is working towards, and I think this is something that they're probably going to do in, like, Legends of Runeterra or something, that the lamb and the wolf are only one form of the same spirit, and that you'll find many other spirits of death who are also kindred, but who have different character designs depending on the cultures that they're interacting with. Like, that everybody has a different view on what death is, what it looks like, what it represents, and so everyone sees them differently. I think that's what they're going for. It's been very vague, but Kindred is a fantastic character design. I love the contrasting, like the black mask on the white lamb, which is the mask of the wolf, and then the mask of the lamb on the wolf. It's that this duality of spirits that represent two different aspects of how to approach and conceptualize death. So that's, like, they're just really good. And unique. Like, I have never seen anything like them in another video game before. I know there's a little bit of a controversy-ish thing that someone else had designed lamb and wolf spirits that look sort of like lamb and wolf, and there was a whole thing about whether had Riot known about that and ripped them off, where I think it's more a case of convergent evolution, because a lamb and wolf combo is not, like, the most unusual thing in folklore that I've ever heard of. But the aesthetic design of Kindred, especially in their splash art, is unique to League of Legends, and I really like it. What about the Grey Man? Well, the Grey Man isn't in the video game, so we're not going to talk about him too much. Anyway, another S tier, Kled. And he's S tier, not necessarily because his character design is that amazing, but just because I fucking love his personality. I love his personality. He's just like... He's just so fun. It's not Jim Cameron, it's Ridley Scott's Alien. Blah, blah, blah. Good point, K-Black. I got my things mixed up with the Terminator there. Eric Alejandrino, Terry Pratchett, Kindred when? Terry Pratchett is dead, dude. He's dead, so I don't know. Anyway, Kled is good. Kled is an ornery, cantankerous old man and a hillbilly who's like, who thinks everything is his property, and he's got all the military ranks, and he wants you to get off his land. And Kled is amazing. Kled is fucking awesome. Now, the one complaint I have about Kled is that his outfit is really understated. Like, he's got this, like, this teal with a little bit of red and brown, like, where I feel like his outfit could stand to be a little bit more, like, I feel like he should have medals hanging on his chest, like, just lots of medals that he's made out of bottle caps and, like, old pieces of tin that he's beaten into shapes, just medals that he's given himself hanging all over the place because he's so obsessed with rank. Like, I feel there should be a little bit more extravagance to him, but I love, like, Kled is this cantankerous, ornery, old hillbilly asshole, and then his stupid idiot lizard that he also loves more than anything because it's the one thing that he can never kill or destroy, but is also, like, just dumb as a bag of rocks that's been set on fire. Very good, and his voice acting is great. And Kled is also, like Kha'Zix, Kled was kind of an important moment in the development of Yordles, to the point where they are now, like, getting them to the point where they become these fairy creatures that kind of take on the characteristics of the land that they occupy, that where Kled is becoming basically kind of a parody of Noxus itself, like a parody of Noxus's expansionism and Noxus's, like, might makes right aesthetics. Like, Kled is kind of a funny parody of what Noxus is, and therefore, like, the perfect patron saint of soldiers who are always irreverent about the country that they are defending. And so, yeah, it's like, Kled is just good. I like Kled a lot. Someone I like less well is Kog'Maw. So, Kog'Maw is a void creature also, and he has the Cho'Gath problem that he doesn't look like one. Like, everything we know about the void, everything that's been done with the void in recent times, doesn't look anything like this. This is a circling aesthetic. Like, this is very much something that's drawing from the aesthetics of circlings and Tyranids and, like, Warhammer 40k and stuff like that. But it's all combined into this weird, misshapen little lump of a thing that is a fairly interesting monster design. Like, I'm kind of cool with Kog'Maw as a monster, but which doesn't look anything like a void creature at all. He's a little bit better in his splash art, where, like, they've taken away all this weird spiky roughness and given him more of a sleek, kind of worm-like, maggot-like aesthetic, which makes more sense with him being like a consuming little thing that just wants to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and spits, like, corrosive vomit over everything to make it easier to eat, and also makes him adorable and cute, like a void puppy. But he doesn't look like a void creature. He doesn't look like the thing that he's supposed to be. Really, he desperately needs a visual update. And I hope he gets one soon, but until then, he's C tier at best. Because, like, he's not a terrible design the same way that Caixa is, he just doesn't look like what he's supposed to be. Moving us on to LeBlanc, yet another titty babe. Now, again with LeBlanc, excuse me, I feel like I have some annoyance with the whole, like, she's titty out thing, where she's, like, hot just for the sake of being hot, mostly. Which is, like, that kind of bothers me, but on the other hand, LeBlanc's whole aesthetic, like, everything about her presentation, everything about her character design, is magician. She's a stage illusionist. She is, like, literally what she harkens back to is, like, the pageantry of magic shows of the 1950s and 60s in Las Vegas. She's a Vegas act, right? And so the whole point of her is to look dazzling and gaudy and, like, excessive and completely too much in every single possible way to act as a distraction, to act as, you know, a misdirection, while what she's actually doing is cloning herself and running off. Now, the one thing that that kind of bothers me about that is that I really, really, really wish that LeBlanc, when she was in her, like, when she was invisible, when she's invisible or when she's doing her clone thing, that she has a different character design to you, the player. Like, that you see LeBlanc as she actually is, which is, who knows what she actually looks like, but which is something that's much more understated and much more utilitarian and sensible. But everybody else sees her wearing this completely ridiculous glamour outfit that is a complete distraction. I really wish they would implement something like that where it's made clear that what you're looking at, the look that she is giving you, is just an illusion that's convenient for a purpose, but not actually what the person underneath looks like. Because that's kind of what they're going for, but because she's a very old champion, it's not something that they were ever actually able to, like, fully implement. And so because of that, like, LeBlanc is another one of those that goes into C tier for me, because, like, I can see the idea, but I don't think it's very well executed on, ultimately. Because, like, if this whole, this is only a distraction thing, this is only a fake appearance thing is going to work, then you also need to have a concept of what does the real appearance look like for contrast. Otherwise, it kind of falls flat for me. Lee Sin. By the way, am I the only one who thinks it's ironic that a guy who's blind is called Listen? Listen. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, Lee Sin is a Shaolin monk. That's it. That's the character design. He's a Shaolin monk. There's nothing else. He's a Shaolin monk. That's it. That's all there is to him, is that he's a Shaolin monk who's also blind, and he has a long ponytail. That's it. And I wish I could say something more about him, but he's just so painfully generic and nothing. There's like, yeah, he's with the thing. So he goes into C tier because there's nothing interesting. The problem that League of Legends has with Lee Sin is that he's so iconic to the game, especially through esports, but he's so iconic and important to the game that they kind of can't change him. Like, they can't make him more interesting because everyone would hate that. Everyone likes Lee Sin as the iconic character that he is. And so we're kind of stuck with this guy who really desperately needs a character model update and some animation updates, but yeah, he's just a Shaolin monk, and that's that. Which leads us on to my girl, Leona. One of my first mains, and someone I'm very fond of playing, but also someone for whom I have a critical word or two about her character design, because Leona's armor is stupid. And I feel not too bad about saying that, because I happen to know that her character designer, Iron Stylus, who used to work at Riot, feels exactly the same way about her. He has spoken publicly and at length about how he really isn't happy with Leona's design. Like, he really loves the character, but he doesn't think he did a very good job on her character design, and wishes that he could kind of go back and redo her. And yeah, because remember how with Irelia, I talked about how she and Kale, I talked about how they have this armor design that looks like they can't bend over or even really move at all. Where is this thing going to stab her if she bends over? Like, it's gonna stab her right in the frickin' vagina. And like, it's these streamers of hard metal down along her body with these spiky sides on it. It's like, how is she supposed to move in that? And then there's the boob plate. Like, God, this is the worst example of boob plate in the whole game. Because this is supposed to do what exactly? All it does is creates a point here in the center where if someone hits her right there, it's just gonna drive directly into her ribcage. Like, it's as armor, it's not very effective. And with all this decoration and stuff on it, it looks completely ceremonial. Which, like, okay, she's the aspect of the sun. Maybe she's wearing, like, a ceremonial Targonian battle armor. Okay, I can kind of see that. Like, okay, sorta. But she's also supposed to be a warrior, right? Like, she's supposed to be someone who stands on the front line and actually fights. So why design her with a purely ceremonial armor that doesn't work? Now, there are good things about Leona's design as well. I like this right here. Like, this little spiky front lace thing, front plate thing. She's got hanging down. You have this sun, and then the solar rays that extend into the design itself. This is something that gets copied and reused a lot in Shuriman aesthetics. Like, the entirety of Shurima basically revolves around that solar radiation aesthetic. And that works really well for her. I also like the spikes being used as rays of the sun around the circle on her sword, and around, like, the shield, like, you have these radiating sunbeams. And it's the same thing with, like, the earpieces, whatever the hell it is, the thing that she's got in her forehead. All of that's sort of supposed to emphasize the radiant rays of the sun. That works well for me. Like, that works okay. I feel like that has a cool aesthetic conceit. I think it should be less bulky than it is, but that's again an artifact of her being a fairly old character. And I actually like the armored skirt. Like, I like this long skirt of streamers down around her legs, giving her proper thigh protection. As like that's a really cool design, and again with the long golden streamers, it again evokes the rays of the sun itself. I just wish that she had like an actual fucking chest plate of some kind, like some. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this purple stuff is that she's wearing underneath. Is it leather? It's got this metal collar on it, so I guess it's like a hardened leather plate or something. I don't know what the fuck it is, and I wish her torso armor design was just clarified so that it looks like remotely like something you would be able to wear into battle. Anyway, Leona is a lesbian and she's in love with Diana, and they have a tragic star-crossed lovers romance. It's canon. Deal with it. So let's place her. She's like, I like her too much to put her in B tier. Because she's my first main, but she's bad. But she's my main, but she's bad. But she was my main, but she's bad. But she was my main, but she's bad. I really want to put her higher, but... Yeah, make her naked solves the pointy armor issue. Yes! As ever, if she was naked, straight to S tier. This is true of all the champions. Every single one. Well, except the ones that are already naked. Moving on to Lissandra. I'm very fond of Lissandra. Like, I like Lissandra a lot. Of course, I have nitpicks. You know me, I have lots of nitpicks. I could nitpick her all day, but I just really like her. Like, the one thing I, again, kind of wish is that there wasn't the titty. Like, especially with Lissandra, I really would prefer if she didn't have the cleavage, which she does have, because that sexualization, again, I don't think it does anything for the character. I think it works better for the character to have her be completely covered up in this black suit and have her be surrounded by blackened, corrupted true eyes. Like I think that ultimately works better. But other than that, like, this is just like such a gothy, over-the-top, like, really just power, like He-Man almost-esque Masters of the Universe, over-the-top villain design with this cool-ass helmet. And she looks like a convincing Ice Witch. Like, she looks like a terrifying Ice Witch of the kind, like, you see her gliding towards you over the tundra and you just know you're gonna be a fucking frozen thrall before long. Lissandra is really good, and she has some of the most compelling lore in the game. She really genuinely does. If you read up on some of the Freljord stories that were published, especially the one about Lissandra working to contain the horrors of the Howling Abyss. Like, the lore with Lissandra is that she was one of the 3 sisters of the Freljord. One of the 3 legendary sisters who once guided the Freljord out of domination by the gods and into, like, an age of domination by the human. And that's all very cool. And she's the one surviving sister who struck a deal with the Void, who struck a bargain with the Void that she would let them into Runeterra if they would only spare her, let her live, because she had seen the Void in her dreams because she's a seer. And it had terrified her so much that she would do anything to avoid its terrible grasp. But then once the Void did arrive, Lissandra betrayed it. She used the magic of True Eyes to seal them in the Howling Abyss, killing almost everyone in a massive, epic battle that we've never seen anything about, but which Riot promises us was super cool when it happened. And now she spends all of her time just living in absolute abject terror of when the Void comes back again, because she knows that the... Okay, hang on, I need to ban a guy. Sorry, ANS, but that's a little bit too much. She knows the Void is coming, and every part of her life, everything that she does is about trying to delay the day that the Void consumes Runeterra, which is why she does all the skullduggery and evil stuff that she does, is all in service of that, trying to survive as long as humanly possible. And she has a really cool character design that goes along with it. And for me, she's S tier. I could see if someone wanted to put her in A tier because she's a little generic, but yeah. Moving on to Lucian, the Purifier. One of the first black men in League of Legends, and he has 2 guns. I think a lot of people have commented on that before, but yeah, it's a thing. But let's not dwell on that particularly. Let's look at his actual character design itself. And Lucian is fucking cool. He's a really cool character design. I believe when they originally designed him, he was known internally as the Gun Templar. Like, so they had this idea of like a paladin / Templar character, but who uses magical guns instead of like swords and stuff. And honestly, they managed to pull that off really well. Like, Lucian has a little bit of over-design about him, in the sense that like this coat that he's wearing is like the weird... Let's see if I can zoom in on him. This coat that he's wearing with all these weird details and like it's overlapping on itself, and it has these shoulder pauldrons and like there's kind of too much detail going on with him, where I feel like he'd be a stronger design if he was simplified a little bit, made a little bit more sleek, a little bit less detailed, and like more stark and severe. But that's kind of my only real nitpick with him, is like, if you wanted to design a Gun Templar, this is pretty much the perfect way to do that. Like, this is a really cool character design. I love the long dreads that he's got, like, on the top of his head that flow around with him, emphasizing the speed of his movements. He's a really good design. I don't think he's S tier, at least not for me, but he's definitely an A tier character design. And he becomes better with the addition of Senna, who we'll be talking about, I don't know, in an hour and a half, maybe? Who knows? It's gonna be a while. Leading us on to Lulu, who is like... I don't know how much they say. Like, Lulu is another one of the Yordles from before Riot knew what the fuck they were doing with the Yordles. So she very much just looks like a tiny purple human, rather than like a furry creature of any kind. And she's been retconned recently into being more of like looking like an actual Yordle. She has a great story with Tristana, where they take on Draven and really fuck with him and a bunch of Noxian soldiers. But Lulu herself is like, she's a really old character. You can tell by the character model that it's like really ancient, and she's just kind of in desperate need of an update. And outside of that, there's not much to say about it. It's just like I don't think she's necessarily an F tier, because there's an interesting idea in her hat and the long hair of like her like practically being dwarfed by her own hat, and like sort of being this little munchkin creature that kind of swiggles around on the, like, the kind of shuffles around on the ground and makes mischief. Like, that works for me okay. So it's like, it's not terrible, it's just, it's very old. It's so old, and it desperately needs an update. Fabio Dantes, ever gonna do a video on your favorite skins or skin lines and lore around them? Maybe. Like I've said previously, anytime you ask me, will you ever do a video about X, the answer is probably maybe. I don't know. Maybe. If I have time and space and motivation, maybe. Anyway, moving on to the Lady of Luminosity with, like, the second worst boob plates in the game. Not quite as bad as Leona's, but nonetheless. Say hello to Lux, one of the most popular characters in League of Legends, and yeah, I mean, she's another one of those where it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess. Sure. Yeah, as a light mage, yeah, I can see that. Where, like, I wonder about why she's wearing this. Like, I like her design better in the splash art, where she has armor plating on her waists. And here she just kind of has this cloth that hangs around her waist for whatever reason. But, like, outside of a full redesign from the ground up to start emphasizing, like, Spell Thief Lux is sort of more... Let me see if I can find it. Can I get to look at that splash art, please? Thank you. I kind of would like Lux's base mod. Like, I would like Spell Thief to be more like Lux's base model. Like, I kind of like that better because her whole story is about, or at least currently after the events of the Silence coming, her whole story is about, like, keeping her light in secret, like being this secret mage who, like, sneaks out of the town to practice with her magic and tries to keep her powers from her parents and stuff like that. Like, so this aesthetic for me works a little bit better for that, like with the hood and with the obvious, like, trying to remain inconspicuous kind of thing. But this is the design that she kind of has to have to fit the Demacian aesthetic. Again, Demacia's aesthetic has moved on from where Lux and Garen were at the time, so she looks kind of cartoonish and silly next to the modern, very sparse, very stark Demacian aesthetic. But outside of that, I wouldn't know what to do with her. Like, she's fine. She's fine. Like, somewhere between B and C tier. And I'm going to put it in B just to be generous. Oh yeah, her base Let's look at Lux's original character model if I can find it. Aw, there doesn't seem to be one on the online, but here's her original splash art. Which is just fucking wretched, isn't it? It's very bad. I'm glad they changed it to this. This is at least not as bad and awful. Oh yes, Finales funkeln, ja. Ja, es was Finales funkeln, ja, jeder. Anyway, let's move on to Rockman. Let's move on to Malphite. Now, Malphite has one of my favorite splash arts in League of Legends. Specifically because of this. This right here. Because of this. This is so fucking funny to me. You have this living mountain charging at you, and you have these two motherfuckers with this tiny little rope like, yeah, I got him! I got him! We got him! He's getting tired, Bobby! I got him! Just hold on one more second! We've got him almost! Shit's dragging him down! He's gonna get tired soon! It's like riding the hogs back on the farm! I love their enthusiasm! It's like, they think... They think it's gonna work. They're holding on. They're trying. And I love this. It's something about that is just so fucking funny to me. And also this moron with his fire arrow, like that's gonna do anything. But I just love those two idiots, like holding on to his arm, like that's gonna do anything. That's lovely. Anyway, Malphite himself kind of sucks. No, it's not Tedric. Tedric is a Demacian soldier. These guys are Noxians. But Malphite himself kind of sucks. Like, he's like, oh, it's a rock golem man who rock spikes. It's like, he's incredibly generic. And the problem with that, like, they've actually done some really interesting stuff with Malphite's lore. Recently, where he's become the shard of the monolith. He's like this shard of sentient rock that broke off from an Ishtal construct that was created to fight the void but failed. And so he's become this sentient mountain, essentially, that moves around underground and tries to crush out the void wherever he finds it. He's on this mission to defend Runeterra from the void. Lots of interesting stuff in his lore. None of that comes across in his character design. And so, like, for me, he's like, yeah, he's probably more of an F tier, really, because it's just, like, he's just a rock dude. Like, it's so painfully generic, and there's nothing to him. There's nothing interesting about him at all. And that kind of sucks. And it sucks because he's got one of the best splash art moments in the entire goddamn game, but yeah, that's the way it goes. Alright, then. Malzahar, another rather old champion who became a lot more interesting with the passage of time. So Malzahar, Prophet of the Void, I don't remember his original lore. In fact, I'm not even sure I remember his current lore. He's had a few. Let me see if I can find it just to give myself a refresher. But basically, he's a dude who gets called into the desert in Shurima and goes to Ikathia, I believe, more or less, and finds the void and goes into the void, which is something that you're not normally supposed to survive. But he manages to survive, and he has his third eye on his forehead here opened and becomes the prophet of the void, summoning voidlings all over the place and just generally being a fucking terror while preaching this weird quasi-religious mysticism about how the void will set us all free and the void is salvation and blah, blah, blah. And there are parts of his character design that I find weird. Like, why does he have a dagger? Why does he have these gauntlets on his hands? Like, the robes themselves are, like, fine. But he has this character design that sort of seems to be modeled after ideas of djinn and genies that kind of just doesn't work for me. Like, it's fine, but it doesn't... The whole thing about being the Void Prophet, like, the herald of the Void itself, there really isn't very much of that. The only thing that's really there that showcases him as a prophet of the void is the glowing eyes and the eyes on his hood. Now, in his splash art, they've done the really clever thing where this is actually a hole in his hood into his head where you can see the third eye glowing in there. On the character model, that's not really represented because it's an old character model that was created before they came up with this visual conceit. So he's like, he's another one of those that is just like I don't know if to make it B, C tier, actually. Like, he's much more cool, he's cooler in concept than he is in execution. Basically. Would it help if I apologized? For what? I don't know. Would you cut up the live stream and upload them? Probably, maybe. I mean, if I do that, it's gonna be over on my second channel. So head on over there and subscribe. We'll talk about that at the end of the stream if you're still around. Moving on to Maokai. I like Maokai. I say that with uncertainty in my voice, because he's kind of a weird one. In the sense that Maokai is this haunted treant that lives on the Shadow Isles. And in the current state of his lore, he's a treant, like, he existed on the Blessed Isles long before the Shadow Isles happened, the Ruination. Oh, it's a Lux reference. Oh, that, I get it. I don't play Lux. How would I know? He lives on the Shadow Isles. He's a twisted treant. And he was introduced with the twisted treant, something along those lines. But the current state of his lore is that he was the master of a grove of trees on the Blessed Isles that had a spring of magical life-giving water. And when the Ruination happened, Maokai saw the corruption spreading across the Shadow Isles and absorbed as much of that water as possible at the very last second before the Ruination swept over the entire islands. And that kept him safe and let him remain twisted and scarred by the Ruination, but still alive and a guardian of life on the Shadow Isles. And so now he spends his time wandering the Shadow Isles, trying to protect what little life lives there. Not human life. He doesn't care about humans, but he cares about plant life especially. And that's like kind of a cool idea, and his character design is fine for that. I wish he looked a little bit more like an actual tree rather than like a tree golem of some kind, but like, I like him a lot, but I don't feel like I have like a character design justification for liking him. He's a B tier for me, but I couldn't really point to anything that makes him especially good. And then we have Master Yi, another very old champion in League of Legends who for some fucking reason still has swords strapped to his legs. He never uses them! He only ever uses the big sword with the rings on it, so why does he have sword? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Captain Wuju style. Master Yi is not great, in my opinion. He does not look anything like an Ionian, for one thing, at least not to me. Maybe the Wuju village had this sort of vaguely weird, heavy, futuristic armor thing going on with the Sam Fisher goggles that allow him to see Wuju or whatever. But Master Yi to me is not a great character design. Like, he doesn't look like an especially compelling swordmaster as such. And he wears the, like, he has all this heavy armor on him, but then he's also supposed to be this agile, fragile dude. And his character model doesn't look anything really like his splash art. And it's like, I don't have a lot of positive feelings about him. At least he doesn't have pizza feet anymore, but, you know. And so we get to Misfortune. Now, Misfortune is a character that, like many other characters we've covered before, I have some conflicting feelings about. Because I like hot, sexy, flirty, like, oversexed, titty babe, bounty hunter, pirate girl Misfortune. I like this original version of her. I like that there is this flirty, sexual redhead in the game who like just walks around with giant cannons and blasts people and who wants to fuck everyone and everything, and especially herself. Like, I like that. I think there's room for that in League of Legends. I like that as a concept and as an idea, not just because I'm horny, but also, like, I think there's room for that, for the lusty pirate maid in there. But if I had to choose, I'd rather have Captain Fortune. Like, if I had to choose between the two, I'd rather have Captain Fortune, because she's much cooler. There's much more of a narrative arc with her, like with her conflict with Gangplank, and her struggling as, like, she has killed Gangplank, or at least she has taken him out of the game and taken over Bilgewater as its primary pirate lord. But now, being thrust into the position of power that Gangplank used to occupy, her story has become about how the pressures of trying to maintain power and order in Bilgewater is tempting her to become like Gangplank was, to become as brutal, as ruthless, as cruel as he was in order to maintain her power, because, well, that's what she's been working for her entire life. That's what all this revenge was for. That, to me, is a much more compelling story than horny pirate girl wants to fuck and or collect your bounty. There's much more story there. There's much more narrative. There's much more character there. And so for me, I wish they would just replace Miss Fortune with Captain Fortune and make that final. But then maybe after that, they could invent a new hot, sexy pirate girl who can take up the role of being that part of, like, the pirate fantasy, that sexy part of the pirate fantasy. That Miss Fortune used to be, but which she has kind of transitioned out of being. Because I think there's room for both. But in this particular instance, if I had to choose between them, I have to choose Captain Fortune. And I really wish they just give her a voice line update, make Captain Fortune the base skin, make this traditional Miss Fortune instead, and let her keep being horny in that one. And it's just finally pull the trigger on it, because between the Tales of Runeterra short that came out fairly recently, between the Burning Tides and Shadow of and Fortune, between the fucking Ruined King game that's going to be taking place at least partly in Bilgewater, all of that stuff, there's no fucking reason to have her be this in the game anymore. Like, there's no reason to keep doing this when it's clearly not who the character is supposed to be. Anyway, Miss Fortune, if she was Captain Fortune, I would put her in A or S. But so long as she's Miss Fortune, she's only B tier at best. And that's only because I like the big titty pirate lady. Anyway, Mordekaiser, aka League of Legends Sauron. I mean, that's kind of it. Mordekaiser is League of Legends Sauron, and that's sort of the start and end of his character conception. Well, he's Sauron, but specifically a little bit more of a barbarian warlord Sauron, rather than scheming flaming eye on top of a tower Sauron. One thing I do like about Mordekaiser's design is that he takes some of his design cues with his aesthetic, and especially with his armor design, especially his helmet, from Noxus and the Immortal Bastion itself, because of course that used to be his fortress before he was kicked out by uncertain circumstances and decided to become a Lord of the Dead instead. Or decided to, I say, but... And so I like that as a little bit of world-building detail in his character design. I really like his animations, too. I talked about this when he first came out, when the rework first came out, that it's new animations, and especially his new walk animation, emphasizing the fact that he's essentially an empty, haunted suit of armor, work really well, and I really quite like them. But outside of that, he's just like a perfectly competent Dreadlord character. Like, he's armored Dreadlord, fantasy bad guy villain dude. Perfectly competently executed, but also, like, not that different or exceptional. And to me, that's like a B tier, because, like, he is kind of generic and boring, all things considered. He is League of Legends Sauron, but there's nothing wrong with him as such either. Moving us on to Morgana. So I like Morgana a lot better than Kayle. Specifically because where Kayle represents this kind of enforced asceticism, and like this complete, I don't want to be human, I don't want to have anything to do with my humanity, I want to shed all humanity, I want to, like, transition out of blah, blah, blah. That stuff. Morgana instead represents an embrace of her human nature, an embrace of like the complexities and the sensuality of life. And I like that. Like, I like that you can see on her that she wears this big, comfortable dress with fur lining, and there's a little bit more, like, a sense of her as someone who kind of enjoys being alive, unlike her sister, who is just fucking up tight all the time. Now, the criticism I have, though, is that between Kayle and Morgana, there's not nearly enough character design contrast when it comes to the design of their bodies. Like, again, how we talked about with Karma is like, okay, so Morgana is the opposite of Kayle in all things, so wouldn't it make sense that Kayle is all obsessed with martial purity and physical purity and, like, training all the time and doesn't eat anything and blah, but Morgana, on the other hand, is a hedonist? Like, she enjoys life, she eats a little bit more, maybe she has a little bit of a belly, like, maybe she's a little bit thicker? Like something that indicates that she lives a different kind of lifestyle that Kayle does that is reflected in her body. Rather than just being purple and gold, you also have like a physicality to it. Like there's stuff there that I kind of wish they'd gone harder on it. And rather than just have, again, Morgana be yet another titty babe, because she is. Like, and I don't mind her being sexualized. I really don't, because again, she's more of a hedonist than her sister. She's more of a life enjoyer. Being sexualized is fine there. I just wish they'd gone harder, like, done more with it. Anyway, Tic Tac. Morgana is generic, but deserves A at least. I don't know, I'm gonna put her in B, I think. Because, like, there was so much untapped potential with her, like, to go way harder on making her a contrast to her sister. Which is what their whole relationship between the two is about, is that they're polar opposites from each other. But they don't really look like polar opposites. They look like kinda opposites. Anyway, Yulin Farabjorn, meant to type the first time, my bad. Please be gentle with my boy Scion. He tries his best. Scion is a good design. Don't worry. Riley... Aitchison? I see Mordekaiser as the perfect form of old Noxus values that Swain will have to defeat to create a greater Noxus. Yeah, that might be the way that they're gonna go with him. S rank if needed, of course, as always.